Hi, welcome to the University of Lincoln's Live Lounge. I'm joined this evening by Beth from our outreach team. We are going to be focusing on personal statements. It's that time of year where we're coming up to the UCAS deadline, 31st of January. A little bit of pressure's on for some students, either they've started or haven't started personal statements. So we wanted to pop on a live lounge tonight just to sort of cover off some frequently asked questions and concerns about personal statements. So we're going to sort of bounce some questions around myself and Beth, and you guys are really welcome to pop any questions or comments that you've got, and we'll pick them up as we go along. So hi, Beth.
Hi.
Thank you for joining me this evening. So we're going to cover personal statements. I've got a few little questions we're going to start with, and then hopefully we'll pick up some comments as we go along.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so I'm going to start with the time of year. Is it too late to write a personal statement?
No, so you're not too late to write a personal statement. So obviously the application deadline for UCAS is January 31st at 6 p.m. However, lots of schools and colleges have their own internal deadlines. So you do just need to be conscious that you're meeting any deadlines within the school or college, but you're not too late to write it now. No.
And is there anyone in the school or college that they could find out about their deadline internally?
Yeah, absolutely. So, any careers leads that you might have. So, if you've got a dedicated careers team, if not, asking your tutor would always be a good start because then they can relay the question to anybody in the staff room that might know.
So it's definitely not too late to start your personal statement or to finish it and get it over the line.
No, absolutely.
So how long can the personal statement be? What's the maximum limit?
So the maximum limit is actually 47 lines or 4,000 characters. So there's not actually a specific word count, it's a character count. And it's whichever of these it meets first. So you can be under 4,000 characters, but over on the line count and vice versa, and it will cut out in the middle of the word. It is a very strict count. But yes, so it's 4,000 characters or 47 lines.
So if someone goes over that character count of the 47 lines, um, although they'll think that they've entered that information, it will just disappear off the screen and the admissions teams won't see it. Is that
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. On the flip side, there is a minimum, which is 1,000 characters as well. So you do have to write a certain amount on the
You have
UCAS
to write
paper.
something.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So where do I start? Where if I was writing a personal statement, where would I start?
Yeah, so obviously, if you've not started anything already, it can be really daunting, especially just staring at a blank piece of paper. So I always start to think, right, so what am I either currently studying at school or college, or do I have a specific subject area? Maybe not necessarily even a specific course, but a specific area in mind. So engineering, for example, can be quite broad. So start thinking, right, what course do I want to study, or what area am I interested in, and why? So I usually recommend having a bit of a bullet point list because sometimes just going straight into the paragraph format can actually be quite daunting. So having a look at what your inspirations is, was there anything particular that's inspired you either at school or at college, or anything you've read or seen in the wider world that sparked your interest in studying at a higher level?
Oh, fab. That's a good place to start. And how do I structure my personal statement?
Yeah, so you will need things like any specific skills or experiences that you've can relate to the course that you're interested in studying. So these could come from things like work placements or summer schools, anything like that, but also within your subject areas that you've studied at school. So if there was something that sparked your interest or has a specific skill, you can include that. You want a separate introduction and conclusion paragraph. You don't want to bulk those in with the rest of your essay. Even little paragraphs on your subjects that you're currently studying and experience can be really helpful as well.
Okay. Um, so are there any sort of online tools that you'd recommend that would help me sort of structure and build my personal statement?
Yeah, so UCAS has their own personal statement builder template that you can
Okay.
use, which is really good. There are some other ones out there as well. You'll find a lot if you research them. There's also Unifrog, which has their own personal statement builder as well, which is one that is often used in schools, but UCAS has one too.
So for parents that might be watching and concerned that, their son or daughter is struggling a little bit with getting their personal statement,
Mhm.
maybe they've started it, but they're not sure sort of with the content. Um, are there any sort of ways that the parents or platforms that the parents can work with their son or daughter to structure their personal statement as well?
Yeah, so if parents do have any opportunities, if there's any sort of evening events going on at school, like parents' evenings and the such that running up, that might be a good place to get some advice if you're maybe not sure where to start. UCAS is also quite parent and carer friendly as well, so they have their own guides on there for all sorts of different things as well, including student finance and anything really related to the higher ed journey. So it can be a really friendly tool for parents as well.
I think as well, someone mentioned the other day, Unifrog's quite a good platform for parents as well, because there's a sort of parents sort of pages to it as well. So if
Mm,
parents are sort of looking at that little bit of support, then they could use the platforms that we'd recommend to do that.
yeah.
Okay, so this does get asked quite a lot. Should I include my qualifications? Because obviously when they do their UCAS application, there is a qualifications section where they list out previous and current qualifications. So then when it comes to the personal statement, should they include them?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually get asked this one a lot as well. So there is a way to include it. So you're absolutely right. We have their own different section where they list out their GCSEs and their A levels or BTECs or T levels, whatever they're currently doing or have done in the past. They list their grades with that as well, or they get their predicted grades added. And we also know what institutions they've studied at too. So you don't need to go and in your personal statement and waste your characters by sort of listing all these qualifications. So we know what you've studied in terms what grade you're achieving or what you might achieve at your A level results day. So you don't need to go about listing them, but you can pull from the experiences from them. So if there was something you've studied in that class or a particular module in psychology, for instance, that really sparked your interest or provided wider reading or taught you some skills that you can link back to the course or career that you're hoping to achieve from higher education, you can make your qualifications relevant in your personal statement. Absolutely. You just don't need to go about listing them because it can, like I say, take up your character and line count quite a lot.
So would you recommend, so let's say I was doing 3 A levels,
Mhm.
let's say I was doing English, history, sociology. Would you recommend me writing a little bit about each of the subject areas that I'm currently studying?
Yeah, especially if they feed directly into the degree that you're interested in doing. So those three subjects actually tie in together quite a lot for a lot of different options. So things like criminology, obviously history. So they can be quite facilitating subjects. They can offer a lot of options at university. So especially if you can tie in all three in a relevant way, absolutely include them. Yeah, maybe a little bit on each one would be really good.
Okay, fab. Um, we have got a little question here that's just popped in about the changes that are coming with regards to personal statements. Now, there's been a little bit of chatter the last couple of years actually about changes coming for personal statements. We thought it was going to be introduced by UCAS in 2024, but they've delayed that now a little bit. There's still a little bit of work going on. Um, the earliest that any changes would be from 2025. I think it's fair to say that it. I don't think that they would be removed entirely. So I think there still would be a requirement for personal statements to be included. But I think that the sort of the general consensus is that it will be more sort of questions structured. So, for example, the UCAS personal statement builder sort of builds in those questions for students to be able to ask those questions, so that it's not sort of a just what sort of one big body of text. So, Toby, to answer your question is, as a year 12 student, you'll be applying next year. It may well be that they'll introduce those changes. We don't have any sort of finalised details about those changes, but it's not likely to be massively different from what would be expected in a personal statement as it currently stands. I think it's fair to say in the sort of education, between universities and UCAS, the discussions have been that whilst it might sort of give you a framework like the UCAS statement builder, you will still be expected to be able to write a little bit about yourself and sort of what information to include in your personal statement. I hope that sort of helps answer your questions. I know year on year sometimes UCAS and various education things change a little bit, and it can be a little bit confusing and a bit upskittling, but the general consensus is that there will still be a need for personal statements and requirement from students. So you will still need to be thinking, if you're in year 12 this year, that over the summertime that you'll be putting together some ideas, like Beth explained, about how to start your personal statement, sort of putting together some information about what you might want to include in it. Obviously, if you're applying for early application degrees and qualifications like medicine, veterinary science, they're nice and early, the October deadline, so you need to be writing your personal statement nice and early for those. Following that framework, whatever's introduced by UCAS at that point. So back to sort of asking questions. So some of the other questions that we get asked a little bit is, and actually this is quite a tough question, what's the most important part of the personal statement, Beth?
Yeah, so a lot of people could easily argue that obviously it's the introduction because that's what catches the eye of the admissions tutors, or that it's the main body because that's where you get to delve into the relevant experiences that you've had and to link them into the course. But arguably, the most important part isn't actually in any of these logistical pieces as such. It's the actual embodiment of you. So it is a personal statement. And although you could be applying for the course that your friend is applying for, you both could have done the same work experience and have the same qualifications. Your personal statement should still be different because you are two different people. So it should be a personal reflection of you. So arguably that's the most important part, is that we get a personal impression of you as an individual from obviously everybody else that we get for these courses.
Fab. So at the University of Lincoln, we offer a number of NHS partner courses, so nursing, midwifery, paramedic science, for example. How important is including relevant work experience in that?
Yeah, so for a lot of these courses, there is definitely an emphasis on any direct experience you could get. So this obviously maybe in a caring setting like care homes, any St. John's ambulance schemes. So there is definitely an emphasis on if you can get this direct link experience, and that's great because obviously it teaches you the different skills in terms of sort of the medical field, but also the transferable skills that they need. But on the flip side, these placements can be very high in demand, and that mean that a lot of people can miss out, unfortunately, on these. So it's not necessarily just direct work experience that's important. Work experience that teaches you things like leadership, team working skills, communication skills, caring, responsibilities. So brownies, Cub Scouts, guides, being on sports teams, even if you're a leader or if you volunteer within the community. So even though obviously there is definitely a benefit to having direct experience, if you can't get it, it's almost not the end of the world. You can get experiences and the skills from other areas as well.
Okay, thank you. And obviously with, various issues that, students may not be able to get that sort of direct work experience in like board or something like that. So it's really good advice to sort of say utilize and use any other experience that they can get and reflect on their experience. So what are admissions tutors looking for?
Yeah, so they're really looking for someone who's interested and passionate. So someone who's motivated to study in their subject area. If at any point your personal statement isn't reflecting your true motivations, then that's something that they're maybe going to flag up at some point. Could be an interview that maybe discuss with you, depending on what course you're applying for. But they're really just looking for someone who's interested in their subject, who's definitely wants to carry on studying as well, because obviously university it is a set time of undertaking extra study. It's a couple of years usually if you're doing a foundation degree, 3 years on average if you're doing a bachelor's. So just making sure that you've got that sort of resilience and determination to study within their subject area is really going to stand out.
Fab, thank you. So if I was wanting to apply for different courses in different subject areas, and I was still sort of at the point of applying, not quite decided whether I wanted to do, I don't know, engineering or design, because actually in careers that you could do design and engineering.
Yeah.
What would you recommend from a personal statement point of view? Two totally different subject areas. How do I attack my personal statement?
Yeah, so obviously we now know it's a very limited size statement. You have only got a few thousand characters to be working with. So generally sort of applying for very broad spectrum subjects that don't possibly have much crossover or any correlation at all can be a little bit difficult, but what you really want to do is keep it general. So focus on the progression to your higher education, talk about your current studies. You don't want to go into too much detail about specific subject areas or courses or possibly even specific universities as well. We never recommend naming a specific university in your statement. Talk about your ambitions, any possible career aspirations that you might have. Obviously in the example of design and engineering, there is definite crossover in career aspirations. So just keeping it possibly as generalized as possible rather than delving or leaning particularly one way or the other in the statement is going to really help you to cover a larger spectrum of subjects.
So what you mentioned about not mentioning universities,
Mhm.
naming universities in the personal
Yeah.
statement. Why would that be? Why would that be a no-no?
Yeah, so even if you've done perhaps a specific medical school or a summer school, and you've been to a specific university, you may well have been inspired by that to apply to that university, and that's wonderful. They always love to see that. However, you are almost always not going to apply for just one university. And so naming a specific university, or even I've seen it where people have listed out specific modules offered at universities as well, it gives off the same impression to the other four that you're applying to that they're maybe not as high up on your list. And so it just doesn't reflect well on you. So it also just helps to protect you a little bit and sort of just make it generalized. So that's why we never recommend naming or getting too specific with a university.
Okay. Also, for anyone who's a little bit unsure about that, so the the way UCAS works is that invisibility applies. So to avoid any sort of prejudice, if you're applying for Oxford and Cambridge, you wouldn't want them to know that you're applying for. Maybe you wouldn't apply for both of those, but it sort of it prevents prejudices. If an academic favours one university over another, a admissions tutor favours one university over another, it avoids that. So the only way that they would know where you're applying would be, other than them, would be if you mention it in your personal statement. So it's good, like you say, Beth, not to mention them. We had a little question from Ian. Ian is asking, what are some of the common mistakes students make when writing a personal statement?
So I find that typos and grammar is actually a big one. So spelling mistakes. The UCAS portal itself on their website doesn't actually have a spell checker. So we never recommend directly typing into that because obviously, first of all, that can be quite intimidating, typing onto just sort of a blank space. But it also will catch out a lot of people in terms of their spelling mistakes and their grammar. Another one is often using cliches. So there can be in an introduction, a lot of the time, people are generally, they've wanted to do their career for a little while, but we might get the ever since I was a young child or ever since I was a little child, I've always wanted to do this. And a lot of the time, if we're really, really honest, that's not necessarily true. And it can catch you out as being a little bit cliche. And it doesn't come across as a realistic reflection of your ambitions. So the ones that I see the most are typically spelling mistakes and a few of those cliches in the introduction as well.
Okay. I'm going to stick with questions for a second. Sometimes we do get asked maybe questions are a little bit different, but really important to some students. So there's a question there about bringing pets into student accommodation. Just to sort of pick up on that, while some accommodation providers may allow pets, generally assistance dogs would be allowed, absolutely, in I would say probably the majority, if not all of the accommodation. I'm sure we would allow assistance dogs. For family pets, there may be some accommodation choices that would allow pets to come into them. And what I would say is, if you haven't visited an open day already, come to an open day. We've got some open campuses coming up. So this Saturday we've got open campus. Come along, chat to the accommodation team, ask them which accommodation types may allow pets to come with you. Just bear in mind that you will be in lectures, so you may need to sort of organise it so that there is someone to look after your pets while you're at university. You are enrolling onto a full-time course, so whilst there's independent study while you're in classes, then you just may need to make sure that that doesn't then impede your studies. But a great question there about bringing pets. They are a big part of our lives, aren't they? I'm just going to sort of jump in with sort of probably more towards the end of your personal statement when you're talking about careers and gap years.
Mhm.
Should I talk about, if I, let's say if I'm applying for a deferred entry, or if I know what career I want to do, should I talk about that in my personal statement?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially the career part can be really, really helpful tie in for your conclusion as well. So the conclusion itself doesn't have to be particularly long. It doesn't have to be a big chunky paragraph. It can just be a couple lines, maybe a few short sentences, just to tie everything together. And career ambitions or aspirations are a really great way to sort of summarize everything that you've talked about as well, and to just solidify your passion for what you want to study. On the flip side, obviously, if you're maybe intending to defer, either to go do work experience or a gap year, you can can include this as well if you do intend to take one, especially if you've got possibly like a planned gap year where you might be doing some volunteering, or you can maybe give some details that will just firm up some of the relevant skills that you're either going to learn or experiences you're going to have that can contribute to your time at university. So you absolutely can include them, and they can be a really, really great way to finish off your entire personal statement.
And so when I'm writing that last paragraph,
Mm-hmm.
should I write in conclusion?
No. Okay, so you don't have to use the very words. So you wouldn't put in introduction in your introduction, and in the same side in conclusion. It's just a bit of a formality that you don't need to include. You don't necessarily have to say, in conclusion, I want to go to university. You can just summarize yourself and talk about that relevant experience. So you don't have to use the formal words. No.
Oh, well, following on from what we've just said,
Mm-hmm.
there is a question: what does the conclusion need to include?
Yeah, so it is, you could refer back to possibly the introduction, so bring it back to the start almost. If you wanted to summarize on what inspired you to apply or what sort of sparked your passion to apply. If you do obviously have a career in mind or a particular thing you want to study, you could finish off with that as well. So it's rounding out your journey towards and why you want to apply, and then finishing it off nicely. So you don't necessarily have to feel the pressure to touch on every single paragraph either. So it can just be possibly maybe you link it into your introduction or you link it onto your future ambitions. You don't have to touch back on every single thing.
Okay, great stuff. So how important is extracurricular activity? Because I think one of the things that we sort of hear a little bit from students, and I certainly have heard this recently, is I'm not very interesting. I don't really do anything. I just go to college or I go to school and I just study. So I'm just not very interesting. So how important is extracurricular activity?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are someone who takes part in sports teams or volunteers regularly, then extracurricular is going to be an obvious option for you to include because you can draw on things that it's taught you in evidence to write for your personal statement. People who say that do make me chuckle. I'm a reader myself. It doesn't give me much to go on for a personal statement, but you don't necessarily have to talk about it. It can absolutely be a great way to link in skills, or it can be a great way to boost your character count. But there is also, on the flip side, no pressure to add it in. If you are thinking, I'm really, really struggling to put in something about my extracurriculars, and you can't realistically link it in, you don't have to put it in, because although it can boost the word count, it can also reduce your word count unnecessarily. If you don't want to put it in, you don't have to put it in. You can focus on your academics a little bit more, anything you're doing within your school time, because you're going to college or going to school. There is still plenty for you to draw on for your personal statement. You don't have to feel that pressure to cover all aspects of your life.
Because it can feel a little bit daunting, can't it? If someone sat next to you or a couple of people sat next to you have done like grade 8 piano or they've done Duke of Edinburgh and they do all of these sorts of wild stuff outside of, school or college, and I don't, I'm pretty boring. I just live my life and uh, should I be including anything, that that they're including? Should I try and suddenly rush through doing some music qualifications or something?
Yeah, you see that I do understand the pressure, absolutely, especially if you're sitting in a classroom full of people, like you say, who are on the sports team, who've done DV, who've done this piano qualification or flute or violin, or they do so many hours of experience, or they've done all this volunteering. There can be an absolute pressure to feel like, oh no, I don't have enough to give, but you absolutely do. It's just finding the skills within the experience that you've got. There's no need to feel that extra pressure to think, right, I really need to get an extra qualification or something that's going to make me stand out. That's just going to add more stress to you in your final year as well, which is really what you don't need or want going into the final year of your A levels. So I can absolutely understand the pressure to do these sort of extra things, but you don't need to.
So
Although it,
focus on so if I haven't necessarily got a lot of extracurricular activity, just focus on my academic studies and
yeah,
skills,
absolutely.
other skills. Oh,
Yeah, it's
thanks,
not to
Beth.
say that all those things aren't great. It's just if you haven't already got it and you're starting to panic, you don't feel you don't need to feel the pressure to do so.
Okay. I'm just going to we've sort of just recently covered it, but I'm just going to cover over it again. So what do I say if I'm so a question from Ian again. Thanks, Ian.
Mhm.
So what do I say if I'm applying for different types of courses?
Yeah, so especially if you've got subjects that are linking together. So I would go back to law and criminology, or if you're interested in sociology and criminology, subjects that have a general overlap within the area, or what their type of subject, even that they are very similar subject styles, it can be quite comfortable to fit it within a personal statement. But if you're going for this broad spectrum of, let's say, we did engineering and design earlier. So if you're going for this broader spectrum, just try to keep it generalized as well. So talk a little bit about your ambitions and your careers, but don't try to get too weighted on a particular subject. Maybe talking about your aspirations and your progression through university, focusing a little bit less on the specific subjects. It will give you more leeway within the character count.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. Thanks, Beth. I'm going to go back to a comment about open days.
Mhm.
So universities tend to do open days in a couple of tranches, so autumn and summer sets. But we have some open campus events coming up. So whilst they might sort of have slightly different titles, there's still an opportunity to visit universities. And I'd really recommend at this point, if anyone's hasn't been to the University of Lincoln and visited, if they haven't been to any universities and visited, then please do pop along to one of our open campuses events. So we've got one on Saturday, we've got a general one, and also we are I've got a specialist one on nursing and the NHS courses. So please do come along to that. You know, if you want to meet our program leaders in subject areas, then please do book on to the open campus. Especially for nursing, this time of year, we sort of find that you know, students are you know, they've gone into an access course perhaps, so that they're sort of trying to do their personal statement, and an access course is only 1 year, so there's quite a lot of pressure on those 1 year courses, students studying in those 1 year courses to suddenly turn around things very quickly. So we do put on extra events for students that are coming into health and social care courses and nursing specifically. But there's a general open campus on Saturday. There's a nursing specific one on Saturday. Please do have a look. There are also you know, various visitors events that you can come to. So even if you miss this Saturday, you can't come this Saturday because you're working, then have a little look. And if you're not sure, contact us, drop us a message on socials or email us. There's some contact details there at the bottom of the screen there, so you can book on. If you're not sure, then just jump onto our socials and see what we're putting on social media. There'll be various sort of posts on there that you'll be able to link through to book it, various booking pages. You can phone us, email us, as I say, social media, or just jump on our website and just go directly and book yourself on. So there's another question here. Does the extracurricular activity have to be related to the subjects that I will study? For example, music, and applying for medicine or biomedical sciences? That's a great question.
Yeah, absolutely. So it doesn't necessarily have to be linked. So obviously, if you can get opportunities within a direct link, then that's great. It's going to teach you all the kind of skills you need in a little bit more of a direct and obvious manner, which is also going to be then helpful for your personal statement. However, especially for things like medicine, paramedics, nursing, within that medical field, things like dentistry as well, bioveterinary, it can be quite limited in how you get personal statements, how you get work experience or extracurricular activity within that area. They're very high in demand, positions are very limited. So what you can do is you can do different opportunities. So things like Cub Scouts or guides, brownies. Generally, what you need to focus on is, okay, what skills do I need to pull from any placement, whether it's directly related or not, and how do I go about getting them the best? So I have actually chatted to some of our program leaders before, and they've said where people do struggle to get experience within paramedics and nursing, they're after the skills of things like caring, leadership, communications, critical thinking, and those are things that you can absolutely pull from non-related areas. So it is just about what you can gain from within that within that experience that will then help for your statement.
I think as well, the extracurricular activities show us a bit of personality. They show us a little bit about you. So you don't have to have done extracurricular activities, but if you have, then you know, please do mention in the personal statement, because when you're writing your personal statement, it is exactly that, isn't it, Beth? It's a personal statement, so it's a way to sort of show us a little bit of an insight into someone's personality and experiences.
Absolutely. It is a personal reflection of you at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And it's the fun side. Just like at
Yeah.
university, we have the Students' Union, so you'll be able to engage in extracurricular activities as part of the fun side of university, with our clubs and societies. That personal statement and sort of showing any extracurricular activities is that sort of first little step of the showing us the fun side of you when you apply to university. So how do I write? Let me just go back a little bit, sorry. Should I include part-time work experience? This sort of follows on from extracurricular. Should I include part-time work experience, such as sort of waiting tables, cleaning, housekeeping, anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, part-time jobs, part-time work experience, again, it's one of those things where you're thinking, I don't know how that's directly related. But I speak from experience. Working part-time alongside A-level studies, it's definitely something that takes up a lot of your time. It's a lot of responsibility. It's almost like you're taking baby steps into the working world while still studying at the same time. So it requires a lot of things like your time management skills, being reliable and dependable as well. Waitressing, for example, or housekeeping, dealing with people on a day-to-day basis, and it's not necessarily always easy, so it will develop communication skills, and those can tie in quite well into different courses. So it's again just pulling on these skills that you can get from potentially something that's not directly related and applying it to the course that you're going to need. It also shows the understanding of the demands of the course as well. So if you know that, for example, paramedics possibly dealing with people at the worst points in their lives, and you've already had lots of chances to practice communicating with people in various states of emotion, it will help you deal with situations like that. So it can be a direct link without it necessarily being in a healthcare based setting, just as an example.
Thanks, Beth.
Yeah.
So we're sort of just over half an hour. I'm just going to finish with a question about the sport course specifically, because there's been a question about it. So sort of linking, like we were saying about linking extracurricular activity. Um, so this person says they did sports studies and also football academy, which is great, but it's more practical and I'd like to know if the sport course is written practical or theory work. That's great that you're part of a football academy. Just to sort of say, we link in with the Lincoln Imps, our local football team, the League One team, and they actually coach our first team at soccer, at football. So we have a really strong, solid link with our local league team, and that's via the student union, and through the course as well within the subject department, so from both facets. So what I would say is it is a degree. There is going to be written work. There is also going to be a practical element to doing a sport degree, depending on which degree you pick, because there's various sort of degrees within our School of Sports and Exercise Science. So I think coming along to any open campus events or booking on to any sort of visit us open day type events would give you the opportunity to chat with the academics, chat with current students on those courses. There is also UniBuddy, so if you're on a course page on our website, it'll pop up with UniBuddy, and you can have a little chat with current students on that course and sort of just ask them sort of how heavy is that sort of workload, theory to practical, and they'll be able to sort of give it from a student's experience, which would be really good for you. I think we're just going to wrap it up there. If anyone hasn't got any other questions, thank you ever so much for joining me tonight, Beth. Thank you for everyone who's watching and listening. I hope we managed to cover any sort of frequently asked questions or concerns that you've got. I think the main takeaway from this evening is it's not too late to start or submit your personal statement. If you're struggling a little bit, ask for help. If you're studying at school or college, then go to the careers team, go to UCAS Corner, go to your personal tutor and ask them for some support and help. We also have teams in the university that can help with this, so you can ask for them to request for our support to come in and support you guys as well. So please do say, someone at the university said, University Lincoln said that they offer personal statement support. Can they come in and support us? And we will book that in with your tutor or the careers service, and we will more than happily come in and support you. There's lots of sort of online guidance and advice, but I think just the main takeaway is don't panic, don't lose sleep over it. Just think about why you want to go to university, why you want to do that degree course, and try and put a bit of information pen to paper. Use the online tools, UCAS Statement Builder, I was looking at that the other day, and it's a great sort of tool. It sort of breaks it down into sections. So, please do use the online tools as well that you have at your fingertips. And if you're not sure about anything, if you need any support, then just ask, whether it's parents, tutors, so that you get that support. And I think that's everything for today. So just want to say good luck to everyone with your applications. It's not long to the UCAS deadline. That 31st January will come around super quick.
Yeah.
So if you haven't started, if you haven't submitted your application, your personal statement, then do crack on with it. Let's just get it done, get it submitted, get it over the line. It feels worse than it actually is once you start writing it. And then once you've submitted your application, it's a bit of a waiting game to then sort of see what offers you may get. And what I would say is, don't be completely put off by entry requirements. If you see that there's a course that you really want to do that's ABB and you're on track for there or thereabouts, or maybe just a little bit below, then still apply for it. Because you never know that there may be some sort of little bit of flexibility there with entry requirements on getting into university, depending on that year's cohort. So please do still apply, and keep everything crossed that you get some good responses from the universities that you apply to. So have a great evening, everyone. Good luck with your applications, and we'll see you at the next Live Lounge. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.